Mayka Kukucova was a former model. Andrej Volek was her wealthy ex-boyfriend. Sienna Harrow was the woman who unknowingly stepped into a deadly love triangle. What began as a breakup turned into a horrifying plan fueled by obsession, jealousy, and control. No one imagined that behind Mayka's silence was a mind capable of murder and a basement hiding a terrifying secret. ChatGPT said, Mayka Kukucova appeared to have a glamorous life. Her early modeling career had taken off quickly, with local magazines and small fashion brands eager to work with her. She was young, beautiful, and had a quiet confidence that drew people to her. But behind the striking features and graceful walk was a woman who struggled with insecurity and an obsessive need for control. When she met Andrej Volek at a luxury event in Prague, she saw in him everything she thought she wanted: wealth, status, and emotional safety. Andrej, nearly 15 years older, was captivated by her charm. Their relationship moved quickly. Within months, she had moved into his Marbella villa, and they were frequently seen at high-end restaurants, yacht parties, and fashion events. From the outside, they looked like the perfect power couple, but perfection can be a dangerous illusion. As the months passed, Mayka began showing signs of jealousy. She disliked Andrej's business trips and became upset when he spent time with friends or colleagues without her. She would frequently check his phone, ask about his meetings, and accuse him of being distracted or uninterested. Andrej used to independence, tried to set boundaries, but every time he pulled away, Mayka clung tighter. Eventually, the strain became too much. Quietly, without drama, Andrej ended the relationship and asked her to move out. The breakup was clean in words, but messy in emotion. Mayka didn't react openly. There were no scenes, no begging, no pleading. But inside, something broke. She told friends she needed time off and stopped taking modeling jobs. She sold her car, closed down her apartment, and returned to Slovakia. For a few weeks, no one suspected anything unusual. They thought she was healing, moving on. But in truth, Mayka had begun watching Andrej's life from the outside. She created fake Instagram profiles to keep tabs on him, sent herself emails as if writing letters to him, and even kept a journal where she detailed imagined scenarios of getting back together or punishing him for leaving. Her obsession deepened. When she discovered that Andrej had started seeing someone new, a rising fashion designer named Sienna Harrow. Young, British, and successful in her own right, Sienna represented everything Mayka feared: replacement, irrelevance, and rejection. The more she saw of them together online, the more her hatred grew. She began researching Sienna's background, looking up her brand, her hometown, even her family. But it didn't stop there. Mayka started traveling secretly back to Spain. She used cash to book cheap hostels under fake names and would walk around the neighborhood near Andrej's house, memorizing details: when the lights turned on, which side the garage door opened, and how long it took the gardener to make his rounds. She found an old key in a purse she hadn't thrown away, a leftover from her time living there. That key became her plan. She believed she had the right to be there. In her mind, Andrej had been stolen from her, and Sienna was the thief. While Andrej and Sienna were away for a trade event, Mayka made her move. She drove a rented car to the villa, parked in a hidden area near the cliffs, and waited for nightfall. With gloves on and her hoodie pulled low, she entered the house using the key and immediately disconnected one of the exterior cameras. She brought with her a small bag: snacks, water bottles, wipes, and something far more disturbing: a handgun she had acquired through a private seller months ago. She had rehearsed everything in her head countless times. She selected a hiding place inside the large walk-in closet in the main bedroom, tucked behind winter coats and shoeboxes. There she would wait. Her breathing slowed. Her body became still. The house was quiet, and outside, the sea waves rolled softly under the night sky. Mayka's thoughts were not of fear or guilt, They were of justice, twisted and imagined, where, in her version of the world, she was the one who had been wronged. And now, it was time for her to take something back. Mayka remained hidden inside the walk-in closet for nearly 2 full days. Her phone was off, and she moved only when absolutely necessary, surviving on protein bars and sips of bottled water. She listened to every sound in the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the creaks in the wooden floor, the faint rustling of trees outside. But her attention remained locked on one thing: the return of Andrej and Sienna. Her mind, already fraying at the edges, replayed old memories like a broken record. She imagined their reactions, their fear, and eventually, their submission to her twisted plan. In her world, this wasn't a crime, it was closure. On the 3rd day, Mayka heard the sound she'd been waiting for, the distant roll of luggage wheels across the driveway tiles. The front door unlocked, voices filled the air, and light footsteps moved through the house. Andrej and Sienna were home. She didn't move from the closet. Not yet. She waited as they settled in, heard them laughing, heard the clinking of glasses. There was comfort in their voices, unaware of the nightmare hidden just feet away. The hours crawled by. Mayka remained still, numb from staying in one position too long, but fueled by adrenaline and obsession. Sometime in the early morning, she finally emerged. Silent as a shadow, she walked barefoot through the house. A single lamp glowed in the hallway, and the master bedroom door was slightly ajar. Inside, Andrej and Sienna were asleep. Mayka stood over them for several minutes, the gun trembling in her hand, but her expression calm. Something about the scene enraged her, the ease with which Andrej had moved on, the smile on Sienna's sleeping face. In her fractured reality, it was all a personal insult. She retreated to the kitchen, waiting until sunrise. She didn't want to kill in the dark. She wanted light clarity so they would know it was her. As dawn broke, a loud noise echoed through the house. Neighbors would later say they heard what sounded like an engine backfiring, followed by silence. But what really happened was this. Andrej stepped outside in his robe to get something from the car. Mayka followed, gun raised, and fired the first shot into his back. As he collapsed, she stood over him and fired 2 more rounds, one into his chest, the other into his head. The horror didn't end there. Inside the house, Sienna ran toward the door when she heard the gunshots. She saw Mayka through the window, holding the gun. Panic took over. She turned and bolted down the hallway, but Mayka entered behind her. What followed wasn't recorded, but evidence suggests that Sienna was subdued with zip ties and forcibly taken into the basement. Mayka did not shoot her. Instead, she locked her away alive, terrified, and with no idea what would happen next. Mayka cleaned up. She wiped fingerprints, changed her clothes, and placed her old hoodie and gloves in a garbage bag. She then took Andrej's car keys, a spare phone, and one of Sienna's travel bags. She drove off calmly, stopping only once at a gas station. CCTV footage would later show her standing beside the pump, sunglasses on, casually looking at the map on her phone. She then drove across the Spanish border into France, and from there made her way towards Slovakia. Back in Marbella, Andrej's body was discovered later that morning by a landscaper. He had arrived to trim the hedges but found the gate ajar and the driveway stained with blood. Authorities were called immediately. Inside the home, they found no signs of a struggle, but also no sign of Sienna. Her purse, ID, and phone were on the kitchen counter, her luggage still packed near the door. It was as if she had vanished. Detectives initially thought it might have been a robbery or kidnapping gone wrong. The absence of forced entry confused them, as did the level of cleanliness inside the home. The only clue, a faint fingerprint on the stair railing, would change everything. Within hours, it was matched to Mayka Kukucova. And with that, what had seemed like a mystery suddenly became a manhunt. But even as they pieced together the timeline, one terrifying question remained. Where was Sienna? As word of Andrej Volek's murder spread across Marbella, the entire community went into shock. News vans parked outside the luxury estate, reporters speculated endlessly, and neighbors watched nervously from behind their windows. A successful businessman gunned down in his own driveway, and his girlfriend missing. People feared something much darker was behind it all. With no suspect in custody and no clear motive initially established, the city braced for answers that weren't coming quickly enough. Detective Clara Mandos was assigned to the case that same morning. A seasoned investigator known for her calm yet methodical approach, Clara arrived on the scene within hours of the body's discovery. She immediately noted how clean the crime scene was. Too clean. There were no broken doors or windows, no ransacked drawers, and no blood trails inside the house, except for a single fingerprint, smudged on the stair railing, and a faint trail of dirt near the basement door. That basement door, when opened, revealed something chilling: a pair of broken zip ties on the floor and signs of a heavy object or person once being restrained. A piece of torn cloth was found nearby, and the air in the small storage room was stale, as if someone had been in there for days. But there was no Sienna. Her luggage remained near the entrance. Her phone, found on the kitchen counter, had multiple unread messages and missed calls. Clara scrolled through recent photos. The last image had been taken 3 days ago in Milan, a cheerful selfie of Sienna and Andrej standing under a trade show banner. Nothing since. It was as though she had disappeared into thin air. Interpol was contacted. Within 24 hours, a Europe-wide alert was issued for Mayka Kukucova. Her fingerprint had confirmed her presence in the house. A check of border surveillance showed a woman resembling her crossing into France in Andrej's car early the morning after the murder. CCTV footage from a gas station in Avignon showed her wearing a baseball cap and dark glasses, calmly pumping fuel into the vehicle, then disappearing again into the highway network. Detective Clara pressed deeper. She contacted Andrej's business partner, Eric Tassar, who revealed troubling details. Months earlier, Mayka had shown signs of stalking Andrej after their breakup. Eric admitted he'd once seen Mayka parked outside their office, just sitting in her car for hours. Andrej had been uncomfortable but dismissed it, saying she would eventually move on. Eric also confirmed that Andrej and Sienna had received anonymous messages, online threats written from fake accounts. When shown the messages, Clara suspected Mayka had been watching them all along. Her anger building in silence. As the investigation continued, authorities began searching nearby areas, hoping to find any trace of Sienna. Drones were deployed along the coastline. Dogs were brought into the surrounding woods. Divers even searched small inlets near the villa. But every search came up empty. No witnesses had seen her leave. No one had heard screams. With no blood inside the house, many feared she had been killed and her body disposed of before Mayka left. The lack of evidence began to take a toll. Online conspiracy theories bloomed overnight. Some speculated that Sienna had been an accomplice. Others suggested Mayka wasn't the killer at all. Clara remained focused. She believed Sienna was still alive somewhere. The clues in the basement hinted at confinement, not murder. But with every passing day, hope faded. 5 days into the search, Clara received a call from a small roadside clinic just outside Marseille. A woman had arrived barefoot and disoriented. She was dehydrated, covered in scratches, and her wrists were raw from restraints. The woman gave only her name, Sienna Harrow. Her story would stun the entire investigative team. She had been locked away for days without food or water. She had no idea if Andrej was alive or dead. She remembered being dragged, tied, and left in complete darkness. When she finally managed to escape through a narrow crawl space behind loose bricks, she wandered through the woods for hours before stumbling upon the clinic. Her account confirmed what Clara had suspected. Mayka hadn't just committed murder. She had plotted a crime of obsession, control, and unimaginable cruelty. And now, it wasn't just a homicide case. It was one of the most disturbing manhunts in European criminal history. Sienna Harrow's survival changed everything. Until she walked into that roadside clinic in France, the investigation had felt like a chase in the dark. Her reappearance not only confirmed Mayka Kukucova as the perpetrator, but also revealed the full extent of her depravity. The truth was far worse than anyone had imagined. At the hospital, doctors treated Sienna for dehydration, bruises, and signs of prolonged restraint. Her wrists had deep red marks where the zip ties had cut into her skin. Her ankles were swollen from crawling barefoot through rough terrain, and she hadn't eaten in nearly 3 days. Once stable, she gave a full statement to French authorities, who quickly relayed it to Spanish investigators. According to Sienna, after hearing the gunshots that killed Andrej, she panicked and ran. But before she could leave the house, Mayka cornered her. Armed and calm, she forced Sienna into the basement at gunpoint. There, she zip-tied her hands and feet and pushed her into a small storage compartment. The space was no larger than a dog kennel, dark and airless. Mayka placed a cloth over the opening and left her there without a word. For over 40 hours, Sienna remained in that box, drifting in and out of consciousness. The only sounds she heard were the occasional creak of footsteps above and the faint the refrigerator somewhere upstairs. She had no way to know if Mayka was still there or if she'd been left to die. But the worst part, she said, was the silence. It made her mind spiral into fear, panic, and grief, especially once she realized Andrej was likely dead. Eventually, Sienna noticed one of the boards in the side wall was loose. Using the metal clasp from her bra, she managed to pry it further, open and squeezed through into a crawl space used for piping access. She followed the dark tunnel for hours, bleeding and weak, until it led her outside to a drainage ditch. From there, she walked along the roadside in a daze until she found the clinic. Her account shocked the public and lit a fire under law enforcement. Clara Mendos now had a witness, a motive, and a timeline. But Mayka was still missing, and the international pressure to capture her grew by the hour. Interpol placed her on their red list. Flyers went out across Europe. Clara released security footage of Mayka at the gas station and began coordinating with Slovakian and French police. But Mayka hadn't vanished into thin air. She had a plan and help. Evidence soon surfaced that she had been communicating with her brother, Andrej Kukucova, in the days before and after the murder. His online activity revealed searches for no extradition countries in Europe and how to erase digital footprints. Surveillance from a mountain village near the Slovak-Polish border showed Vladin buying large quantities of canned food, medicine, and outdoor survival gear. Clara theorized that Mayka was hiding in a remote area, relying on her brother to move between villages and supply her with necessities. The terrain was vast and rugged, dense forests, abandoned cabins, and few cameras. It was the perfect place to disappear. But her downfall came from a small mistake. A local farmer reported seeing a woman matching Mayka's description, drawing water from a private well on his land. She had spoken no words, wore a scarf over her head, and walked with a limp. The report reached authorities, and within 24 hours, a special unit surrounded a small cottage in the hills. At dawn, officers moved in. Inside, Mayka was found asleep on a mattress in a corner. She didn't resist arrest. She didn't speak. She simply looked at the officers with an expression that chilled everyone in the room, calm, hollow, and utterly detached from reality. Vladin was arrested hours later, found in a neighboring town purchasing a burner phone and a forged ID card. The woman who had once graced magazine covers now sat in a metal chair, barefoot and silent, waiting to be flown back to Spain. Her capture made headlines across the continent. But even in custody, she offered no confession, no explanation. Just silence, as though even now she believed she had done nothing wrong. For Sienna, the nightmare wasn't over. She had survived, yes, but the trauma left scars deeper than the ones on her skin. And for Detective Clara Mandos, it was now time to bring Mayka Kukucova to justice in the eyes of the law. Mayka Kukucova's return to Spain was met with a media frenzy. Flashbulbs popped as the transport vehicle pulled up to the courthouse in Malaga, and reporters shouted questions she refused to answer. She remained expressionless, escorted by armed guards into the courtroom. To the public, she was now more than just a killer. She had become a symbol of cold, calculated obsession. The woman who once lived in luxury was now confined to a solitary cell, awaiting trial for murder, kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and attempted murder. In the courtroom, the evidence against her was overwhelming. The prosecution laid out a clear timeline using security footage, forensic analysis, GPS data, and Sienna's harrowing testimony. Images of Andrej's body, the crime scene, and the concealed space where Sienna was held were shown to the jury. The details were disturbing. Every aspect of the crime suggested premeditation, from Mayka disabling the surveillance system to Kukucova bringing her own food and firearm. The court learned how she stayed hidden in a closet for nearly 2 days, listened to Andrej and Sienna's conversations, and then acted without hesitation. Her defense tried to argue that Mayka had experienced a psychological breakdown, that the murder was not pre-planned, but a result of emotional instability triggered by the breakup. They attempted to paint a picture of a vulnerable woman, heartbroken and confused, not dangerous or evil. But their claims were dismantled by the sheer amount of planning involved. Expert witnesses testified about Mayka's mental state, and even they admitted her behavior showed signs of obsession, not confusion. Sienna Harrow's testimony was the most powerful. When she took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. She described the moment she heard the gunshots, the fear that flooded her as she was dragged into the basement, and the darkness that consumed her as she lay trapped for days. Her voice trembled as she recounted how she used pieces of metal to free herself and crawl through tight, suffocating spaces to reach freedom. Her survival was a miracle, but her trauma was evident in every word she spoke. Detective Clara Mandos also testified. She walked the jury through the investigation, from the fingerprint on the stair railing to tracking Mayka across Europe. She revealed how Mayka's brother Vladimir helped her stay hidden, bringing supplies and arranging for forged documents. Vladimir, facing his own charges, eventually agreed to a plea deal in exchange for full cooperation. His testimony sealed Mayka's fate. He admitted that she had planned the attack months in advance and had spoken openly about taking back what was hers. After a trial that lasted 3 weeks, the jury returned its verdict. Mayka Kukucova was found guilty on all charges. The judge delivered a harsh sentence, 28 years in prison, with no chance of parole for the first 20. The courtroom was tense as the verdict was read. Mayka showed no emotion. She simply stared ahead, unmoved, as though she had already disconnected from the consequences of her actions. Her brother received a 3-year sentence for aiding and abetting a fugitive. He was remorseless during sentencing and claimed he had only acted out of family loyalty. But the court made it clear helping someone escape justice makes you part of the crime. In the aftermath, the story of Mayka Kukucova became one of Europe's most infamous true crime cases. Documentaries, books, and news specials picked apart every detail. The world struggled to understand how a woman who once lived in the world of fashion and luxury could fall into such darkness. Sienna Harrow disappeared from the public eye shortly after the trial. She moved back to the UK and began a quiet life, away from cameras and headlines. But her story would always remain a testament to survival, strength, and the horrors one human being can inflict on another. For Detective Clara Mandos, the case left a lasting impression. It reminded her that monsters don't always come in the form of strangers or shadows. Sometimes they wear a smile, live in sunlight, and only reveal their true selves when no one's watching. And sometimes, the most disturbing crimes begin with love that turns into control and ends in blood.